car, we'd start driving, we'd leave around 9 a.m. And the entire purpose of leaving that fucking early wasn't because, let's beat traffic, no, it was because we had to beat the fucking Solomon family. The Solomons were family friends and cousins of mine, distant cousins or whatever, but the Solomons were always at the beach on Sundays as well. When we went to the beach, I come from a humongous family on my mother's side, so you're not talking like 3-4 people. You're talking 25, 30 from my family, 30 from the Solomons, then 20 from the Badways, and it just, there was hundreds of us, and that's just kind of the way it went. So the whole thing was we had to beat the Solomons to the goddamn beach. The Solomons are always at the beach, like I just told you. We just had to beat them there, and the only reason was because there was one prime parking spot. The parking spot in question, it had a sign in front of the spot that said Italians only. Now, I don't know if this started as a fucking gimmick or if somebody just thought they'd be cheeky about it and put the sign up. But for like 15 years, this motherfucking sign was there. And my father had told me, I guess years and years after my grandfather died, he's like, that sign had been there forever. And that once a year, somebody that worked, I don't know if it's who runs like picking up the beach and all that shit, but they would literally fill in the letter. So as it faded over time, they just come back over and fill it in. Now, you probably couldn't get away with something like that in this day and age, but it said Italians only. And it didn't matter, honestly, if you were 2 spaces down from that spot or not. It didn't change the parameters at all for him. But my family and the Solomons, more specifically Anthony Solomon, they would fight over that fucking parking spot. I mean, you could be literally 1 spot over and it was like being in Hades as far as anybody else was concerned. Proximity to where they needed to be was 5 feet. It didn't really make any fucking difference, but my grandfather would take side streets, he'd take shortcuts, he'd blow through red lights, he'd blow through stop signs just so he could pull up, be there, have his chair out and have that fucking smirk on his face as the Solomon showed up and he was standing there with his cigar jetting out of his mouth, just to stand there and throw it in his face. See, I told you might have left early, but we got here before you. So often when riding with my grandfather, you would hear a rattle under his seat. And I would say, what is that? And then he would just start cracking up. Listen, I was just a kid. I would try to reach underneath of the fucking seat to see if I could find out what it was. And he would ask, what are you doing, Kid Nabladone? And that's what my grandfather called me as a kid, Kid Nabladone. And so I was never able, because I was so small, to get my hands under the seat to find out what it was. But in any event, this particular day, we were running late. We had a late start. My grandfather was racing down side streets, blowing stop signs, not using his fucking indicator, which he never fucking used. As he got older, one of the funny things, we were leaving Lincoln, Rhode Island. My Uncle Tony lived there. And we were leaving Lincoln, Rhode Island late at night. And my grandfather had really bad vision at night, which seems to go in my family. My father had the same fucking problem, even though they weren't related. But I'll never forget one night we were leaving Lincoln, heading back to Providence, East Providence. And my grandfather is like driving. First of all, he's at a Fleetwood Brom. It's a big fucking Cadillac. And he's all over the yellow line. He's all over in the ditch almost. And I look at my brother Rock. What the fuck is he doing? And, my brother just says, you all right? You all right? He's, oh, yeah, I'm fine. He didn't have nothing to drink. He wasn't a drinker and driver. That wasn't his thing. But then for some reason, going a little further down the road, all of a sudden he yanks the wheel to the right and the car like flies sideways in the middle of the fucking street, and he slams on the brakes. There's smoke coming off the tires. And I'm like, holy shit. And my grandfather, probably likely embarrassed that he just couldn't see shit. He goes, did you see that fucking dog? There was a fucking dog ran in front of the car. And there was no fucking dog. He couldn't see shit. It was a fucking dog. So for fucking 3 years, we would give him hell about that. He was, this is a fucking dog. I'm telling you, it was a fucking dog. But it wasn't a dog. He couldn't see 3 feet in front of his fucking face. Anyway, so we're going down side streets. We're blowing through stop signs, he's not using an indicator. And the Solomons, right before we left that day, and I should have prefaced this at the beginning, but right before we left that day, they were nice enough to drive past my grandfather's house, honked on the horn, waving and smiling, all packed up, like 3 or 4 cars heading to the beach. And he's doing it to go with my fucking grandfather. Hey, look at us. We're leaving. You're still packing. See you at the beach. And so they got a head start, at least a 10-minute head start. In any event, as we're heading down the interstate, my grandfather leans down and begins to sort of fish something from underneath the seat. He continues to drive, and he takes a sharp turn. And I hear, "Fafanculo," which I know what that means. You know what that means. So I start laughing my ass off. My mother looks at him and says, "Dad, what are you doing? Is that the pecan?" And I yelled, "What's a pecan?" And so apparently my grandfather kept an empty peanut can underneath of his seat to piss. And when he took this sharp turn, he dropped piss all over himself. He also had a box truck that he used for swag and stuff like that. He had pecans all over the fucking place. But the fact that he would just whip it out and just go while he was driving. And first of all, I don't know how you whip your dick out and start pissing in a pecan with a cigar jutting out your mouth and try driving in traffic at like 80 miles an hour. I don't know how anybody does that. But he explained that, and he would go and then he'd put the plastic top on and he'd set it down on the fucking floor of the Cadillac. He would explain that the reason why is that the Solomons would probably have to stop once because they had a lot of kids in the car, and evidently, a kid's going to have to pee, and that keeping a pecan in the car, it would give him the advantage. Because rather than stop, he could lift the top, he could just go, and he was fully dedicated into beating them to the beach. And so when my grandfather died, my uncle, I think it was my Uncle Joe. My Uncle Joe gave Anthony Solomon my grandfather's pecan and said, maybe now you can beat us. So, those kinds of stories, there's a lot of things I could say about my grandfather that I keep very quiet. One of the other things is that when my cousin, and I don't want to tell you his name, but when my cousin was going to Providence, I think he's going to Providence College, and he was living with my grandfather just because it was easier there, to live.